Superheroes have changed drastically through this millennium, haven't they? When I was younger, the only heroes people could name off the top of their head were the DC Trinity, the X-Men, and of course, Spider-Man. Nowadays, thanks to the incredible rise of superhero films, everyone and their mother could name at least 10 Avengers without much of a sweat. What Marvel and Disney has done is pretty impressive to say the least. And with Spider-Man movies still being as strong as ever, with Into the Spider-Verse recently winning an Oscar and Far From Home recently grossing over $1 billion, I thought it would be fitting to cover the first and, in my opinion, one of the best Spider-Man films in video game form. Now, I won't go into the entire development history of these films because there's a lot to go over, from the 25 years of development hell that it went through to get released, the rumored missing scenes due to the 9/11 terrorist attacks from just a year before, and so on. But we aren't here to discuss one of my favorite movies, we're here to talk about video games. Back before our phones even had the word smart near them, and microtransactions would have gotten the developer blown off the face of the earth, licensed video games were everywhere, from your favorite cartoon shows to food mascots, and yes, even superheroes. Superheroes especially had tons of games to choose from, ranging from excellent to terrible. Of course, Spider-Man is no stranger to video games. In fact, before the Batman Arkham series of games, one could have made the argument he was the only superhero with a game series worth anything of merit. Now, some of you are probably wondering, well, why don't you cover some of his PS1 titles, or his new PS4 title that everyone loves, including myself? Look at the shirt. But I gotta be completely honest, it's something where people have done Spider-Man video game marathons already. Godzilla Mendoza has a fantastic series that you should check out, and I'll link it in the description below. But I just wanted to cover these three games specifically because these movies and games were some of the first Spider-Man media I ever consumed, and I think it'd be interesting to go back and compare and contrast them from then to now, with my opinions and viewpoints having changed so much. So without further ado, let's jump into Spider-Man 1 for the Nintendo GameCube. Alright then, let's do this one more time. Peter Parker was bitten by a radioactive spider and turned into the one and only Spider-Man. This game covers his rise to becoming the wall crawler from the first film, with some added villains to extend the story and not have the entire game be Spidey versus the Green Goblin. Tobey Maguire and Willem Dafoe reprised their roles from the film, but sadly, they are the only two major actors from the film to reprise their roles. No James Franco as Harry or J.K. Simmons as Jameson is a massive disappointment. Oddly, despite Maguire and Dafoe especially being fantastic in the movie, they sound bored and flat here. None of what they say is particularly awful delivery-wise, but I feel like they did this more for a quick buck than genuinely wanting to lend their talents. Which is a shame, because having Dafoe go nuts is something I would have adored in this game. He is undoubtedly better than Maguire, though. I mean, good lord, just listen to some of this.
Oh, Harry, what's going on over here? Who the heck? He sure took off in a hurry. Not so fast. I'll have to deal with the Green Menace later. I can't let those bombs go off. Holy! That thing's bigger than Long Island and it doesn't look too friendly. Ah!
Besides them, the other actors are passable as well. Nothing strikes me as particularly awful here, which for a licensed title is all I can ask for. Visually, the game looks fine. Nothing great or awful, but the faces do look off. I don't know, but not a single one of these face models look right, which I understand is probably because of the time period the game released in, but still, Tobey Maguire doesn't look this creepy, right? Now, on to the main course. Spider-Man is a level-based action game more similar to his PS1 games than his more modern video game interpretations. Now, to some this would be a con, but the previous Spider-Man PS1 games and Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions both did this concept, and it worked fairly well, so it's unreasonable to dink this game for lack of an open world. What is okay to dink this game for is the control. Spider-Man needs to see a masseuse or something because he is beyond stiff in this game, both in the air and on the ground. In the air, his web swinging is so awkward I try to avoid it whenever possible for a number of reasons. 1. Positioning can be a pain in the butt. Moving up, down, left, and right is not so easily achieved as simply swinging as one would expect. In fact, there are no physics to his swing motion. Instead, imagine that you are repeatedly bursting forward while steering up, down, left, and right to swing. Without the ability to pick up or lose speed, physics-based wise, or any sort of possibility for web swinging combat at all, there is no reason to use this unless you want to / have to move somewhere quicker than on the ground. Speaking of which, while Spidey at least controls better on the ground than in the air, he is not fast in the slightest, and his combat skills leave a lot to be desired both offensively and defensively. While he does come equipped with basic combos and web moves like a dome, capture, and gloves, his ability to deal with threats is lacking, both in how much damage he can take and how slow he can be when dealing with more than a few enemies at a time. There's no flow to this battle system in the slightest, which makes fighting more of a chore than anything, because more often than not, I have to cheese the AI, so I can beat them without taking too much damage. The combos in this game range from basic to useless to amazingly stupid. Stupid in the sense that I can stunlock enemies with them or simply kill them with little issue. Like I said earlier, Spider-Man's durability is less than desirable, which means if you take too many pot shots, which is very easy to do, you'll need to heal. Thankfully, the game is sprinkled with red and blue spiders that will recover your health and refill your webbing respectively. There's one other important item you'll need to keep an eye out for. Gold spiders. Collect these and unlock a new combo to use and abuse. But not every single one is on the beaten path, so don't worry if you miss one. The game doesn't punish you for missing these things. Level-wise, the game can be an easy breeze when you're taking pictures of yourself swinging through New York for the Daily Bugle, an annoying chase through the city while dealing with annoying obstacles, stealth missions that wish they were as half-competent as a Metal Gear game, or boss fights. In terms of the web-swinging missions, they're nothing overly infuriating, but they are certainly not the easiest. It takes some getting used to mastering the controls, and even then, it's not like you'll be zipping around like it's Spider-Man 2 or PS4. Even funnier is how you can't touch the ground at all in these missions, like, at all. Go too low without web and you just straight up die, which begs the question, why don't these guys just commit their robberies on ground level in the middle of the street? I mean, sure, the police exist, but this is comic book land, where the police are a formality. I'm sure one guy could rob at least 2 or 3 armored trucks on his own if he tried. Anyways, besides swinging missions, there are standard beat-em-up levels where your goal is merely going from point A to B with some light puzzle elements while you beat the ever-living snot out of every mook you come across. Personally, these are my favorite missions just because of the lack of garbage one will encounter here. Sure, the combat isn't anything fun or invigorating, but these levels feel the most designed around the moveset I have, which makes them more tolerable than, say, the stealth missions. These flat out suck, for a few reasons. One, you have no way to camouflage yourself besides avoiding the direct eyesight of cameras and enemies, which is a lame way to avoid detection. 2, if detected, all you can do is book it because the enemies in these missions are often designed to hit like freight trains, and there are a lot of them. Better hope you don't get caught near the end of the stage, because if you get chased back, you have to do all the stealth over again, which is just no fun. Instead of fighting them off because I'm, able to punch so hard I can remove a human jaw, I have to be a spider pansy and run away. Solid Snake, we are not. And finally, there are the boss fights, which range from fun to annoying to...
Why so scared? You were so brave when you shot a defenseless old man.
Yeah... In terms of non-supervillain boss fights, there is one worth mentioning. This giant mech in Oscorp right before the final boss fight. It does so much damage to you that if you do not play to near perfection, you will die insanely quickly. Worse, you have to go take out 10 generators scattered over the level before you can even get to attack it directly. It's the hardest boss fight in the game for its sheer power and margin of error being next to none. Shocker, Vulture, and Scorpion are all boss fights in this game, which is neat, but the only boss that I care about is the Shocker. In fact, besides the final boss, I'll say he has the best boss fight in the game. Shocking, right? Anyways, Vulture and Scorpion are annoying for different reasons. Vulture because he's an aerial fight, which is something that this game really doesn't do well to begin with, and Scorpion hits hard, fast, and dodges and counters your combos like he's got Ultra Instinct. Nothing the game throws at you is impossible, but it isn't something you'll be beating on your first try either. The Green Goblin, of course, has 3 boss fights. An aerial chase that builds on the Vulture's fight, a fight where you have to knock the Goblin off of his glider to deal lasting damage, and the final boss. The final boss fight takes place on the bridge where Goblin drops MJ and the cable car in the film, but here it's a battleground for the epic conclusion to the story. After saving Mary Jane from the burning bridge support, simply knock Goblin off his glider, beat him up, and rinse repeat until you get to his low health stage. Now this is where you need to be careful, because once this happens, he grows desperate and tries to pull something out of his butt to kill you incredibly quickly. I know it caught me off guard more than once, but once he goes down, he kills himself similarly to the movie, and you and Mary Jane make out, ending Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's my life. Complicated. Looks like you're done now. Go outside and play.
Now before I completely end this, I can't forget to mention the best feature in this game, the cheat codes. These range from simple power-ups like unlimited health and webs to skins that allow us to play as different characters like the Shocker, Uncle Ben's Killer, Green Goblin, and even Mary Jane herself. Now these are just skins, so don't think these unlock exclusive levels or scenarios, but what this does offer are some pretty funny situations with the existing cutscenes. Now, Shocker could be so angry over his friend Peter Parker's uncle dying, he goes on an angry rampage over the New York rooftops. Uncle Ben's Killer can kill himself out of grief for his actions. Green Goblin can chase himself down through the city, and perhaps the most famous, Mary Jane can make out with herself at the end of the game. The guys at Marvel and Activision sure were trailblazers. There are also extra modes the game offers, which range from tutorials with Bruce Campbell sarcastically bossing you around to mook rushes to spider bowling. In this mode, you fight the swinging controls as you try to kick over 10 pins at the end of a bowling lane. It's straightforward, if a little awkward, but a fun one-and-done distraction. And that's it, really. It took me about 8 hours to finish this game, which wasn't overly long or strenuous at all. That included the story mode, extra costumes, bonus content like spider bowling, all that stuff. So, with that said, would I recommend this game to people in 2019? Unless you're a Spider-Man fan or just that curious, I'm honestly gonna say no. That's not to say this game is bad by any means. What this game sets out to do is perfectly fine, but that's just it. It's fine. The graphics are fine, the music is fine, the levels are fine, if a bit annoying. If this game wasn't up against such stiff competition in the list of Spider-Man games, I think I'd be a little bit more willing to recommend it. But with games like Web of Shadows, Shattered Dimensions, and Spider-Man PS4 existing, this is a game you either get for your collection or for nostalgic reasons. Speaking of Spider-Man titles, the next one I'm going to be covering is quite the doozy. Before last year, this was the game people talked about when they talked about good superhero video games. Not just good Spider-Man games, good superhero video games. In 2019, do I still think it holds up to today's standards? You'll just have to wait until next time to find out. Now, if you stuck around till the end of this review, I want to say thank you all so much for watching. It greatly warms my heart that you did so. And if you have any thoughts or opinions on Spider-Man 1, whether it be the game or the film of the same name, you should definitely leave it down in the comments below, because I love hearing what you guys have to say. Now, before I go, I just want to remind you guys, please have a great night, be kind to each other, and I will see you guys next time. Ciao.
Goblin! You aren't getting away from me!